The road to Black Hollow had not appeared on most maps since the winter of 1849. Even in Missouri, where forgotten roads and abandoned settlements disappeared into the hills every year, Black Hollow carried a strange reputation. Wagon drivers spoke of it only after dark. Railroad workers mentioned it in whispers while warming themselves beside coal fires. Hunters avoided the northern ridge entirely, claiming the woods there did not sound natural. And every story, no matter who told it, ended with the bell. The bell that rang every single night, at midnight, without fail, no matter the weather, no matter the season, no matter who died. The people of Black Hollow never explained why they rang it. They only warned outsiders never to ask. Then, in October of 1868, the bell suddenly stopped, and the silence that followed became far worse.
The first man to notice was a railway surveyor named Elias Mercer. Elias had spent most of his adult life crossing rough country with maps tucked beneath his arm and mud hardened into the leather of his boots. He was not easily frightened. During the war, he had watched entire towns burn beneath artillery fire. He had walked through forests filled with bodies after battles nobody remembered anymore. Fear, to him, had become practical, a warning sign rather than an emotion. But Black Hollow unsettled him. He realized it the moment he camped near the western ridge. The evening air carried no insects, no frogs, no distant wolves. The woods surrounding the valley were completely silent. Even the horses refused to settle. His assistant, a younger surveyor named Thomas Reed, sat beside the fire sharpening a knife while glancing repeatedly toward the valley below. "You hear that?" Thomas asked. Elias looked up. "Hear what?" "That's exactly it."
Elias listened. Nothing. No wind touched the trees. No owls called from the dark. It was as though the valley itself had been sealed beneath glass. Thomas swallowed hard. "My uncle told me about this place when I was a boy. Said there's a town somewhere below us." "There is," Elias replied. "You been there?" "No." "Then why'd we camp here?" Elias unfolded his map. Rail company wants a line through the northern pass. Closest route cuts near Black Hollow. Thomas stopped sharpening. "You know why they ring the bell?" Elias smirked faintly. "Small towns invent strange traditions. Keeps people occupied." But even as he said it, he did not believe his own words. Because everyone who spoke of Black Hollow described the bell differently. Some said it sounded mournful. Others claimed it shook windows nearly 20 miles away. One old preacher insisted the bell could not possibly exist because no foundry west of Philadelphia had ever cast something so large. And then there were the stories that disturbed Elias most. Stories claiming the bell rang by itself at exactly midnight, every night, for nearly 30 years. Thomas glanced toward the darkness below. What happens if they don't ring it? Elias shrugged. That's the kind of question that creates ghost stories. Then, the bell rang. The sound erupted
erupted across the valley with such force that Elias nearly dropped his cup. One strike. Deep. Massive. Ancient. The vibration rolled through the mountains like distant thunder trapped beneath the earth. Thomas froze. The horses began screaming. The second strike came slower. Then the third. By the fourth, Elias realized something deeply wrong. The bell did not sound like metal. It sounded alive. The noise carried an unnatural trembling beneath it, almost like a groan buried inside the resonance. A fifth strike echoed through the valley. Then silence returned immediately. Complete. Heavy. Oppressive. Thomas stared into the darkness. How many times was that? 5. Why 5? Elias did not answer. Because somewhere far below them, hidden beneath the trees, he thought he saw lights moving through the valley. Not lanterns. Too pale. Too slow. Almost drifting. And then they vanished. The next morning, they descended into Black Hollow. Fog blanketed the valley floor so thickly the town did not appear until they were nearly inside it. Elias immediately understood why travelers avoided the place. Black Hollow looked wrong. Not abandoned, not ruined, just wrong. Every building stood intact, yet none appeared lived in. Curtains hung perfectly still inside windows. No smoke rose from chimneys. No dogs barked. No children played. The town resembled a painted backdrop abandoned after a theater performance. Then Elias noticed the people. They were watching. From windows, doorways, behind fences. Dozens of silent faces followed the surveyors as they entered town. No one waved. No one greeted them. An old woman slowly closed her shutters. Thomas leaned closer. They don't seem pleased to see us. Most isolated towns aren't. But Elias had visited isolated towns before. This felt different. The people of Black Hollow did not appear suspicious. They appeared exhausted, as if every person in the valley had gone years without proper sleep. At the center of town stood the bell tower. It rose above the surrounding buildings like a church steeple, though no church connected to it. The structure had been built from dark stone instead of wood, giving it the appearance of something far older than the town itself. And hanging inside the tower was the largest bell Elias had ever seen. Its surface was black. Not tarnished. Black. As though the metal had been burned. Strange symbols circled its rim. Symbols Elias did not recognize. Thomas stared upward. Sweet God. The rope hanging from the bell was thick as a man's wrist. Worn smooth. Used constantly. An elderly man emerged from a nearby building and approached them slowly. He carried a shotgun, though not threateningly, merely cautiously. Human surveyors? Elias nodded. Rail company. The old man's expression darkened. "You shouldn't stay after sunset. We only need measurements." The man ignored the statement. "You leave before dark, understand?" Thomas glanced nervously toward the bell. "Why do you ring it?" The old man's face lost all color. For several seconds, he simply stared. Then he whispered, "Because we still can." Before either man could respond, the old villager turned and walked away.
Throughout the afternoon, Elias attempted to work, but Black Hollow made concentration impossible. The townspeople behaved strangely. Every person carried a pocket watch. Every person checked the time constantly. At exactly 3 o'clock, every resident stopped moving simultaneously. For nearly 10 seconds, the entire town stood perfectly still. Then, life resumed. No explanation. No conversation. Nothing. Thomas finally muttered, "We should leave." Elias almost agreed. Then he noticed something near the edge of town. Fresh graves, dozens of them, all recently dug. He walked closer. None had names, only dates. And every grave had the same year carved into the wood. Thomas stared at the markers. How many people died here? Elias counted silently. At least 40, possibly more. Yet the town showed no signs of disease. No quarantine, no starvation, no visible injuries among the living. Just fear. Deep, crushing fear. As sunset approached, the entire town began changing. Doors locked, windows shuttered, candles extinguished. Nobody remained outside. It happened quickly, desperately, as if darkness itself carried danger. Elias spotted the old man again near the bell tower. This time, the shotgun rested openly in his hands. "You still here?" he barked. "We'll leave at first light," Elias replied. "You leave now." "It's getting dark." "That's why you leave now." Thomas stepped backward. "Mister, what happens at midnight?" The old man looked toward the bell tower. And for the first time, Elias saw genuine terror in his eyes. "It comes up from the mine." The words barely escaped his mouth. Elias frowned. "What comes up?" The old man gripped his shotgun tighter. "Doesn't matter what we call it anymore." A distant sound echoed through town. Not the bell. Something else. A low scraping noise. Beneath the earth. The old man turned pale instantly. Oh God. He looked directly at Elias. "If the bell stops tonight, don't follow the rope." Then he hurried away. That night, Elias and Thomas barricaded themselves inside the abandoned schoolhouse near the town square. Neither man slept. Outside, Black Hollow remained utterly silent. No lights burned anywhere. The town looked dead. At 11:47, the scraping sound returned, this time louder. Thomas stood immediately. "You hear that?" Elias nodded. The noise came from underground.
like heavy stone dragging across rock. Slow, patient, approaching. Then came another sound. Footsteps. Not one pair. Hundreds, moving beneath the streets. Thomas grabbed his rifle. What in God's name? At exactly midnight, the bell rang. The first strike nearly shattered the schoolhouse windows. Then came a second, and a third.
The underground footsteps stopped instantly. The scraping ceased. Silence returned. Elias exhaled slowly. Then the fourth strike came, and with it, a scream. Somewhere outside, a woman. Thomas rushed toward the window. Elias grabbed him. Don't. Another scream erupted. Then another. Then gunshots. The bell rang again. 5 strikes. Same as before. But this time, after the final strike, something impossible happened. The bell continued vibrating without sound. Elias could see it through the window. The massive black bell swayed gently inside the tower. Back and forth. Back and forth. Though no one touched the rope. Thomas whispered, "There's somebody up there." Elias followed his gaze. A figure stood within the tower. Tall, thin, completely motionless. Not a man. Too large. The figure appeared bent unnaturally beneath the bell, its limbs extending longer than human proportions allowed. Then the tower lantern illuminated its face. Thomas screamed, because the thing had no eyes, only a smooth, pale surface where the upper half of its face should have been. The figure slowly turned toward the schoolhouse and smiled. The bell rope suddenly jerked downward. The 6th strike exploded across the valley. Every window in town shattered simultaneously. Thomas dropped his rifle and